Welcome to the Hair of the Dog podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Begley, and today I'm chatting with my friend Heather about crisis management. You know, when you feel like the sky is falling in around you and everything is completely out of your control, how do you react to those situations? Well, Heather is going to be interviewing me about some pretty stressful recent experiences that I've had and my tricks for keeping a fairly steady headspace throughout it. So if you've ever had some stress in your life, or you're thinking you might again, which is probably everybody, you probably want to listen to this episode. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Hair of the Dog podcast. If you're a pet photographer ready to make more money and start living a life by your design, you've come to the right place. And now, your host, pet photographer, travel addict, chocolate martini connoisseur, Nicole Begley.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Hair of the Dog podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Begley, and I am joined by the ever lovely Heather Lahtinen. Hey Heather.
Thank you so much for having me. I would like to interview you today, if that suits you.
Tables are turned.
Yeah, I have questions because recently you had a situation on your spring break vacation that to me felt, scary, complex, unnerving, stressful, anxiety-ridden. Like you were explaining to me what was happening and you were explaining it in a very calm and collected manner. And I was so impressed by your ability to manage your mind during what I would label as a crisis. I guess maybe that's the first question. Well, tell us about the situation, but
Okay.
I don't even know if you labeled it a crisis.
Yeah. No, it was just an event. And it was an event for sure. So we went on to Costa Rica with spring break with two other families last year, and their son's friends with our son, and the other family's daughter's friends with our daughter, and all the parents like each other and all the kids get along. So it is a great group. We love doing, fun adventures with them. So anyway, this year we got back from Costa Rica last year, and one of the other moms found a house in the southern part of Belize, and we're like, oh, yes, please. Yeah. Booked it June 23rd, actually. I know the date because I was looking it up when all of this fell down. And so we had booked it in June for an April spring break, because I planned my travel ahead. And everything paid. I paid the deposit. We paid the final payment a month out. And then Wednesday, we're leaving Saturday morning at it was maybe 9:30 a.m. flight. And Wednesday, I start emailing the house with just a couple last minute questions. And I get an email back oh, did you pay your final deposit? I'm like, yeah, I paid via credit card. Do you need me to look up the date? She's like, oh no, we had some data loss. I'll find it. I'm like, okay, great. Okay, fine. And then I sent another question, and then then she responds back just unprompted without didn't ask anything about this or answer any of my questions. Just how many of you are coming and what are the ages of the kids? I'm like, that's odd. You should have that information. And then we get an email that says your reservation is canceled.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. She's like, I'm so sorry. We double booked the house. This has never happened. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. I feel terrible. Here, we found this place for you to stay on the island. This is spring break, everyone. 72 hours out. We found this place for you to stay on the island. For a little context, the island's 26 miles long. The town is at the tip of the island, and we had a house on the beach with a pool with a whole bunch of activities for the kids, like a little climbing wall, a sand volleyball net, all this stuff. So they could just play and we could just relax, and we could walk into the village. This new house was 20 miles north, did not have a private pool, but we could use the hotel pool, was not on the beach, and was decorated I don't know, a 1980s mobster movie, kind of.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Not ideal.
Right.
And so it was significantly less expensive. And she's like, well, I'll refund the difference. Meanwhile, I'm like, well, I didn't spend the amount of money we spent on plane tickets to all fly to Belize for spring break to stay in a crappy house. No.
Wow.
So that's what happened. This is Wednesday evening. I had already shut my computer down. I just ran back into the computer to get something real quick. And I saw that and I was like, well, wait, what? It's canceled. And so, yeah, we were leaving in less than 72 hours.
Okay. Stop right there. I need to ask my first question. That happens in that moment What are you thinking and feeling? Just gut.
Are you effing kidding me?
Yeah. What is happening?
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. I never went to any sort of panic. Now, for context, this is the third time something similar to this has happened. The most recent time prior to this was Kaylee and I were planning Hound Vision in Lake Tahoe in September 2021. Yes, September 2021. And this was after we had canceled Two Barkets because of COVID. This was the first in-person event. We had, spent tens and tens of thousands of dollars on a house. These are not inexpensive homes to rent. And then about 2 weeks out, South Lake Tahoe is under a mandatory fire evacuation. And even prior to that, that actually made it really easy because at least then we didn't have to worry about, will the house let us move it? Worrying about the investment already made in the house because we obviously couldn't go. So they had to move it or refund us. But yeah, that was a little stressful leading up to that. Because we're the air quality index, I think, don't quote me on this, goes to 500 for bad. And South Lake Tahoe at that time, before they evacuated, it was 750.
Oh my gosh.
You literally couldn't breathe. Mm-hmm. You couldn't be outside. It was unbelievably unhealthy, and let alone not making good photos unless you wanted to photograph in an apocalyptic scene. So anyway, so that was 2 weeks before. We're when I was talking to her, and I'm I'm not canceling another workshop. I just know. It's I've done a workshop in Breckenridge, Colorado. We became good friends with the person that owns the house company there. I can find a chef. I have all those models that we found. We can reach out to all of them again. I know that I can basically pivot and build a workshop from scratch within 2 weeks in Colorado. So we did that. I think about 90% of the people that were coming to Tahoe just switched their airline tickets to go to Colorado. And then the last couple spots we ended up filling with some people that were a little bit more local or some other people that wanted to join. So it worked out great. It's fine. No problem. And then the other time that it happened was when we were doing Bark Zealand 4 years ago now. It was spring 2019. Kaylee was going down early, about 10 days early, to go travel before she taught. I was coming to teach and then travel after. And she got to the airport. She flew from Boston to LA, and then American wouldn't let her board her plane because New Zealand had called and said she can't go. She doesn't have the right visa.
I can't even wrap my brain around what that looks like, as if she's some sort of international criminal.
Right? A dog photography criminal.
They wouldn't let her board she was at the gate and the...
Yeah.
What?
After flying from Boston to LA. So that one was, the other two, I never got into any sort of panic. That one, when I heard that news and I read that text, I got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. And so she's in LA, so it's 3 hours behind me. And then the plane was supposed to leave at 11 p.m. LA time. So it was 2 a.m. that she found this out. And so anyway, so it was 3 a.m. or something. And I just felt physically sick because I was this is not good. We have 25 people flying from all over the world to come to this event. And it was it for a minute there. And then also helpless because it's the middle of the night. I can't do anything. You know me.
Correct.
I'm going to jump into action.
Yes.
First line of response, action. Yes. I can do something about this. But yeah, no, I couldn't. So that one was a little thing. And then, of course, you're dealing with governments and visas. So after dealing with that, and we got it situated, we both showed up, we were both there, we got whatever visa we needed to have, it was fine. So after that one, I feel my threshold for stress as far as travel disruption was significantly higher.
Yes. You could handle anything. I remember talking with you extensively throughout the New Zealand situation challenge. And I just kept thinking,
that one was a crisis.
That was a crisis. Yeah. What in the world is she going to do about this? Like, you're trying to contact the New Zealand government to figure out, and they say things like, oh, you just have to fill out this application and we'll get it back to you within 6 to 8 weeks. No, she's at the airport. We need an emergency consulate on this. I don't even know.
Well, here's the best part. When I actually called the DC consulate, because they were going to be the first ones open, the guy that I talked to was just like, you're fine. Just go as a tourist. She must have said something. I'm like, nope, she didn't. Like, she was flagged for some reason. Where I had the actual New Zealand consulate just telling me, like, dude, you're fine. Just go. And I'm like, but for some reason she can't get in. So now what?
Right. What do we do next? Yeah. Which is scary because there's a lot of confusion around the unknown. You don't know what to do. Like, rebooking the house for the workshop or even the vacation is like, oh, I just need to find another house.
Right. This is like, I can't sneak into New Zealand.
Like, I can't get her like a new identity. Get her on the plane. She's been flagged. Oh my gosh. Okay, you tell these stories so a little too flippantly for me, okay? Because they are much more involved and extensive than Nicole is making it sound, because I personally was in panic for you. Like, on your behalf, I was feeling panicked. The New Zealand thing was just unbelievable. But yeah, you figured that out. And then, the Breckenridge and Tahoe and all of that happened. Or where did you end up?
We ended up at Breckenridge. It was supposed to be Tahoe. We ended up at Breckenridge. And then we had a big house that we had to use. So we ended up doing a Tahoe in the spring of 2022, last March, which was amazing. And I said to Kaylee, I'm like, I'm really glad that was last year, because the amount of snow they had this year, I don't know that we could have done it. Because they've had like 60 feet of snow or something insane. Did have a lot.
Yeah, we have some friends out there. So, okay. What I'd like to do is, having all of that information, is take a look at this most recent one, the vacation to Belize, in more detail, because I have turned into an investigative reporter, journalist. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out how you manage your emotions and your thoughts, your mind in these situations, because I honestly feel like I may have fallen over dead. I
was going to say, the first thing is that it's not life or death. Unless you fall over dead, then, well, I guess that would be bad.
Okay. So
number one is, I think I like, just, this isn't, it's a vacation. Yeah, I want to go to Belize, but I'll figure it out. So I think I start from that place of like, there's nothing that is going to be so drastically terrible come of this that is going to affect me for the rest of my life.
Okay.
Or anyone that I love for the rest of their life.
Okay. So the first step is perspective.
Yes.
I'm not kidding you. I am literally taking notes. Perspective. Asking myself, like, will I die? Will I get mauled by a bear? Will anyone I love die? And if the answer is no,
right,
then step 2 is what? Tell me step 2.
Step 2 for me was action. So it was, all right, what are my options? And starting to figure out what those options are. So do I have, like, first it was what's available on the island. And there was literally nothing, because we were a party of 11. So we needed a 5-bedroom house.
Wow.
And there weren't even like smaller places. There were even some like decent hotels we looked at. They were full. They didn't have enough room for all of us. Spring break. And then I started looking at, okay, well, maybe we go to other places. So there were a ton of houses for rent in Costa Rica, but airline tickets and by now had become prohibitively expensive. It's spring break week. And this whole entire county was on spring break that week. And so I was like, all right, that's not going to work. And then I started looking for really just other places we had a couple options. We were going to try to see if they would put us up. There was one house that we would fit in. It was twice the price plus a little of the house that we had rented. Oh, it's really nice.
And
we're like, whatever. And as soon as that happened, and as soon as I had the perspective, I actually then went to, it's fine. It's all going to work out. It's always worked out. It's going to be, and I made the decision, it's going to be this house. We're going to end up in this house. They're going to kick these other people out. We're going to get this house or better.
Oh,
like that's it. Whatever it ends up being, it's going to be this or better.
this or better. I'm writing that
Mm-hmm.
down. This or better. That's a really great concept that goes along with something you said to me off air, which was either way I win.
Yeah, 100%. Once I started doing, like, I went to basically a brainstorm of like, here are all the options. So I talked about this on my Elevate call the other day, like divergent thinking, which is like, we are taking all of the free flow ideas. We are not judging them. We are not looking at, is it applicable? Is it doable? What's the cost? It's just like, what are all the ideas? What are all the different outcomes we can look at? And then we can go to the convergent thinking where we're like, okay, now we can start to converge on one. We can look at one. We can start to look at these how-tos. Will this work? What are the details of this? And so once I started to do that convergent thinking on them and I started to like narrow down, all right, we basically had 3 options. It was option 1, we end up in that house. Option 2, they put us up in this really big fancy house, like super luxe. And number 3, we found a great house on a different island in the northern part of Belize, which looked lovely and whatever. Great, fine. So I decided once those were the 3 items that my divergent thinking converged onto and my convergent thinking, I realized no matter what happens here, I win. Like, they're all awesome. I'm still going to Belize in 3 days. Like, I just don't know where I'm staying yet.
You sound so hyper intelligent right now. I'm really impressed, not only by your ability to navigate this situation, but the vocabulary you have around that is pretty impressive. I wrote divergent thinking, which is no judging, just brainstorming all of the ideas, which then helped you narrow down to convergent thinking of like, okay, what actually can work and what does that look like? And in full belief. So this was a combination of action and belief. Action,
100%. I had the belief. I had the belief first.
Oh, wait, I have these out of order. I got to reorder these. Because I wrote, so far I have number 1 was perspective, number 2, action, 3, belief, but I have those backwards.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe belief. It was back and forth. So the initial belief, like there was an initial belief, like a belief a ladder, if you will, like an initial belief, like this will all work out. And then I started to see the different things. Well, and then find the thing, take the perspective. No one's going to die here. We're like, this is a first world problem. Number 2, the belief that this is all going to work out. It's going to be fine. And then also stepping into my intention, setting an intention of this or something better.
Yeah,
like
I love that.
It was, it's not, no one's going to die. Everything's going to work out. And I intend to make it this or something better. And then I start to find all the things. I start to narrow it down. I end up on the 3. And I'm like, oh, either way I win. I'm completely detached to what the answer was if we got into that house, if we got into that other house, or if we booked that house in northern Belize.
What is the time? I know that happened on a Wednesday. You were leaving Saturday, but what was the time frame that you got to the point of those 3 options?
The next morning.
Oh, pretty quickly.
Yeah, we had the new house booked in 24 hours.
My gosh.
I had to. We were leaving at 72.
There's no option. We have to get this reserved. Okay, how did you maintain like such incredible focus and a clear mind? Really?
Well, this is, if you guys just listened to our Ninja Productivity podcast that we just did release last week about how we schedule our time. This was my week 2 of doing that, where everything went off the rails. And literally by the end of the week, I was just like, this is done. I did flip to what needs to happen before I leave on vacation. And I went back to to-do list for those last couple of days because the schedule, it was out of my control. It was either I follow my schedule and I don't go to Belize, or I go to Belize and I just get that done and get done what I need to get done. And so again, that was me taking control of like, what's more important here? And at that time it was going on vacation still. I'm like, I am not staying here next week.
So you just really laser locked in, incredible focus on Belize needs to happen. I need to figure it out. I'm the one to do it. The work can wait. I trust that I'll figured that component out. So you were able to really quickly get that off your plate just by thinking about it in a certain way, which is I'll reschedule or whatever, get all of those things done because this is the priority and we are going to Belize, period.
Yeah. I was like, I have plane tickets to Belize on Saturday and I'm going to Belize. Like
whether I have a place to stay or not.
Yeah. I mean, it's warm. I can sleep outside. No, I mean, like I knew there would be some place to stay in the entire country, you know, even if we ended up switching from the beach to jungle vacation, whatever. Like I was going to Belize and it was going to be that or better.
That or better. Okay. Well, but listen to this. I have an even better question. My first question was, how did you maintain focus and a clear mind? But you're very good at managing your mind in crisis mode or in very fast action mode. You didn't label this as a crisis. I know I did, but you called it an event. I'm thinking it's a crisis because I have tickets to a different country and nowhere to sleep. And you're like, oh, I'll figure it out. Totally different mindset. But listen. Okay, that's great. But how did you manage the minds of all of the people around you? Because they could not all be as clear-headed as you. There's no way.
Well, my husband's been around me enough that he was just like, whatever, you've got this. Let me know where we're going.
So he trusts you.
Yeah. And if I needed him to do anything, he certainly would have. But I was like, don't worry, I got this. I'll let you know. Then our other friends were... My one friend is very much, she and I are both just like, all right, this or something better. And, you know, one person from each couple kind of had a minute of like, oh, too much change, too much, like a little stress about like, what is happening? Do we still want to do this? Maybe we just cancel it. And, you know, it was just then feeling like, oh, wait, is this person trying to like, was this a scam? Like this house that we rented, you know what I mean? Like all of those feelings come up because we ended up being that they were going to refund the stay plus a few $1,000s, which was a nice bonus for our vacation. And so then it was like waiting for the wire. And of course it's on Good Friday. So it's a holiday bank weekend. Like the banks are going to be closed on Monday. And there's a time change. They're mountain time, but then the bank was like out of New York. So then the wire didn't start to go till like 5. So I didn't get anything. So we then had to have faith that like, dude, it's going to come through on Tuesday while we're in Belize or not. Like, and if it doesn't, I paid with my credit card and I can fight the charge with that. Like there were still options. And it was just, I could either sit for the next like 4 days, my first 3 days of vacation, stressing about, is this wire going to come through? Or I can just say, you know what? If it doesn't, I'm still protected. I paid with my credit card. It has travel insurance. It has all these things. Like I'm just going to enjoy my time and it should come through. And it did.
Okay. You know what you are? You are a master. This is like mind mastery here. This is ninja level mind. So we talked about ninja productivity, but this is you at the mind mastery level because I didn't even realize that part about the banks and the refund. I could see myself really going sideways there.
Well, here it gets even better. So once we decided, it worked out really well. One of the people that was going on the trip is very much into a law field, trademark, IP, but knows laws space. and when this is happening, he's like, you need to call her and say this. I'm like, I just can't. Do you want to call? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, great. So anyway, that all happened. And it was like, all right, fine. We'll refund the house. Like she basically was like, the only thing I could do is you can take this crappy house up here and I'll refund you the difference, or I'll refund the house. You cancel. We were saying we're going to have to cancel our vacation. And here's, a couple $1,000s for plane tickets. And so I'm like, fine, we'll take that one. Didn't tell her we booked the other house in Northern Belize.
Right.
No, she didn't need to know that. Yeah. And then when I responded to that email, there was also this little random glitch in Gmail that I sent probably 3 emails over like 12 hours of like, because I sent that one, from my perspective, I sent that one saying, yeah, we want the refund and the couple $1,000s. And I heard nothing. And then I responded with, here's my wire info. Here's all these things. Like, please confirm you got this. Please confirm when you send it. Nothing. Then I get another one. I send another one. Nothing. And so then we called the next day. We're like, what the? She's like, oh, I sent it. I responded to all those emails. And she sent me the WhatsApp, like the picture of her response. And then I sent her my Gmail, like, dude, I don't have anything. And I went to sleep that night. It was Friday night. Saturday morning, I woke up. They all came through at 4:02, 4:04, 4:06. Like it was stuck up in this random like Gmail place. So meanwhile, all this is going on and we're like booking this other expensive house and this one, because it's 11 people. It's a 6-bedroom house. It's going to like cost a little bit of money. And to not know that one's coming back yet, even though I knew we could fight it with the credit card. So it wasn't like we were actually going to lose any of that money, but it was just depending when it would get back.
Well, still, yeah.
Yeah. But it could question your faith if you don't have as much like, I don't know, unwavering faith that like, it's all going to work out. This or something better. No matter what happens here, I win.
Okay, listen, I would love to believe that I'm at that level, Nicole. And in some areas I am, but when it comes to many thousands of dollars, no, I would have lost my mind. I would have been...
even if you knew that you paid with your credit card, so you could fight the credit card, and they would just refund you.
Like, I hear you say that, and logically I'm like, yes, but until it would actually happen, it's like
your S Corp.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly like my S Corp. Everything is more complicated than I think. I don't understand anything. I don't know if this is going to work. And I get all kinds of confused and crazy. Like, I feel like I'm out of my realm.
This is hysterical right now. Just because you and I had a coaching call this morning in which we broke down my love for complexity and how I overcomplicate so many things because A, I like it. B, I just feel like it's just like, I'm going to be better that way. All these things. And here is the exact opposite where I'm like, this is simple. You're like, that's really complex. I'm like, I need to create a funnel. You're like, that's really simple. I'm like, no, it has to be complex.
So that's probably the best point we've made today, which is what you're saying is that it doesn't matter what the situation is or the circumstance. What matters are your thoughts about it, because you and I could be presented with the same exact circumstance.
Right.
And in this case, you handled it beautifully and you just managed everything. You managed the Belize lady, you managed your friends and the whole situation. And to me, it's like the most complex thing ever. To you, it's simple. And then, vice versa with the funnel. I'm like, that's so simple. And you're like, no, it needs to be complex. This is just so interesting that you can feel however you want about any circumstance by just shifting your thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And
maybe you can't, and maybe you can't shift the whole thinking. But again, can you shift it to, I can figure this out? Like, which is what you did for your S Corp. You're like, I can do this.
Yes.
And now that you've done it, you're like, oh, that was really pretty easy.
Well, let me tell you something about now that I've done it. Not only was it easier than I thought, and it's taken care of. And I'm like a big girl over here. I've got payroll and everything. What? But I started my estimates for this year and they've shifted because there's payroll and the taxes are different, and I'm like living in heaven. I'm like, this is so much better. I'm so glad I did this.
Nice. I love it.
So, with that belief, if you could focus on the end state, which is not only will I figure this out, but whatever happens, I actually win because it's this or better.
Yeah. And I want to bring this around to how this might look in a photography business.
Great.
Especially with maybe, I don't know, an angry client. Like when something like that happens, do you feel like the world is falling?
Yes.
And your whole entire business is going to crumble down and no one will ever hire you again. And you're going to like end up broke on the street.
Absolutely. Homeless.
Yeah, I've been there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So instead, what if you could look at it and be like, this is figure outable. I will do what needs to happen here. And maybe either way I win because now I can learn a lesson to have a different policy in place if there was a miscommunication, or, maybe there's a different way you need to educate about something, or maybe there's a red flag that you didn't listen to about that potential client, but you took them on anyway because you're like, oh, I know this isn't the right fit for me, but oh God, I really need a client. And so maybe that's the lesson and that sort of thing. So can you look at it from a place of, instead of like fearing it, can you say, this is the situation, no matter how they're perceiving it, whether they're right, whether they're wrong, just the perception of the situation is this person has said they're angry with me or they are not happy with something. They would like something to be different. How am I going to react to that? What can I do to salvage this relationship? Or if it's salvageable, or is it time to cut that relationship off and refund? Or like, what is it? Like, what do I do here for this relationship? And then look at it as like, what lesson do I have to learn here? What can I implement in my business so this doesn't happen again?
That's great advice. And also, how does this make me stronger going forward? Like, how does this build character for me? Because everybody fears an angry client. And the first time it happens, it's challenging and you figure it out. But then guess what? You don't fear it as much anymore. So it actually strengthens you.
Yeah, I don't fear calling embassies as much anymore.
I don't fear calling embassies in other countries to speak to consulates because it's just what I do.
I prefer not to have to do that again. But
that's great. But no, it's true. Like if your worst fear happens, the first thing I would say is good. Okay. After I'm sorry that's happening to you, of course. But like, this is exactly what you need because you won't fear it anymore and you'll be stronger. Just like the New Zealand thing happened to you. And I just cannot possibly come up with a more challenging situation than that. And because in terms of travel and because
that might have been the most challenging of my life. That might have been one of the most challenging situations, travel or not, of just there. I mean, there's a lot on the line. We had 25 people that paid a lot of money to fly across the world. Like we couldn't not be there.
And you figured it out, which means a girl who could do that could do anything. So that's why when this little thing in Belize comes up, you're like, it's nothing.
We got this.
To call the consulate.
One of the things that our mentor, James Wedmore, always says, and this is a great indication of this too, is our business will only grow to the level of problems that we are willing to deal with.
Ooh, good one.
So if you will not deal, like you just don't want to look at it and you're like fear and resist any sort of challenge that comes up, like your business is going to be stuck at this plateau level because you're not going to be able to handle anything more than that. And it's not going to give you any more than that.
Oh my gosh,
but if you
that's so good.
Yeah, if you can look at these challenges as, all right, this is an opportunity to grow, to perfect my systems, to get moving. Like for instance, if when I launched the Hair of the Dog Academy, we had like 5,000 members, I couldn't have handled that. That would have been a disaster. Like I didn't have the infrastructure of the team to handle that. I don't think we could even handle that now. Like we need to get that. We need to build it as things come up and be ready for the things that you want in your business, in your life, so that when they start to come in, you can handle them. And when inevitable bumps in the road happen, because it's going to happen no matter what, then you can just take a minute, pause, feel the emotion for a second. Like when I read that first email, I was pissed. I was like, I'm sorry, what? You canceled our reservation? But I was only there for a minute. I'm like, me being pissed isn't going to do anything about it. Me being pissed certainly isn't going to like cause her to be like, oh, never mind. You know what I mean? Like,
I changed my mind.
Yeah. Like you seem really nice to deal with. So like what? Yeah. You have to ask yourself too, like, how is this serving me right now?
Yeah.
And if you're feeling like, no one's saying that you can't feel the emotions and you can't be angry and you can't be stressed or you can't be, sad about something, but you can't stay there if you want to grow or learn from it.
You choose how long.
Yeah.
It is okay to have that emotional response. You're right, because you're going to be mad when somebody screws up your vacation. But you have it. That's automatic for everybody.
Yeah.
But you have a choice as to how long you stay there. And your ability to move through that so quickly is just masterful.
Because I like to go to action.
I know you do. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to do all of the things. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. I think for me, part of doing the things is what allows my brain to start to like understand like, oh, I am in control here. So it allows for me to kind of reset instead of sitting there and stewing. Because if I'm sitting there and not trying to like look into what's next or how can we deal with this, then I'm just sitting in that whatever emotion I'm in.
Right. Which doesn't
help
serve
me get out of it.
It's just not helpful to stay there. So if you have a photography client that's upset, it's okay for you to have a moment of reactivity where you don't like it, or Or even try to, say things like, well, I could have never pleased that client anyway. They were so difficult.
Right. Going straight defensive. Yeah.
I heard somewhere, this is just very recent, the person said, a defensive posture is the first act of war.
Oh.
Yeah. And then they went on to explain, but it was really interesting. I thought when you get defensive, that's like saying, okay, it's time to spar. Like,
100%.
Yeah. Where if you just let it be and didn't defend, have your moment for sure. You have 2.3 seconds. And then you say, okay, what can I do here? Or like you said, how can I make this right? Or what can I do for this relationship? Or what does this look like moving forward? Or do I need to just cut it loose? Does this require a response or no?
Mm-hmm.
And then you write the response and then wait a day.
And
Think
then
about
reword
it.
Give it a minute. Yep. Yeah. Have somebody else read it maybe.
Yes.
Especially if you're writing it from a place of a little bit of emotion.
Like you're trying to explain yourself. You just, you take care of it. But the key here is, what if in these moments during any crisis, you could say to yourself, I've done this. I've said, oh my gosh, this is so good that this is happening. I'm getting to practice my skills and this is really going to serve me. Or in our case, I think this is going to make a really good podcast episode.
Yeah.
Like this is a good lesson here.
Yep. Well, and also it's great too when it's done and you look back on it and like you said, you're like, oh, I managed that. It ends up giving you so much more confidence for like, I can manage other things that come my way too. It
boosts you. You got a confidence boost from the Belize debacle.
I did. And a tan.
and a tan. You got the best of both.
And some of the best shrimp ceviche I've ever eaten ever.
Oh, I'm a little jealous
every day.
Of that. I would.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, I would love that. And red snapper, right? You ate a lot of red snapper.
God. The red snapper was in season, so just about every meal, and it was delicious. Oh my gosh.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for indulging me in my awe of your ability, because so here's what's going to happen. I'll tell you straight to your face. This is what's going to happen. When I enter my next crisis, I'm calling you. And I just need you to talk me down. That's
all
it.
right. Sounds good. We'll get a perspective.
Yeah.
Actually, another crazy thing happened to me right on the heels of the Belize thing. Well, it didn't happen to me per se, but during our Commercial Pet Photography Academy launch that I run with my friend Nicole Smith. She lives over in the UK. She was over in Minnesota speaking at the AIM conference, and like her first or second night there ended up in the hospital needing emergency surgery for an appendectomy.
Yikes.
And so you can go to a lot of places with that. You're like, man, I just flew halfway across the world. I'm supposed to give 2 conference talks over the next couple of days. I'm in the US, like without insurance, all of these things, like what, because like, does my credit card cover the insurance? Well, my UK health insurance pay for like just thinking about like the stress of like, oh my God, I need surgery. And even if you have coverage, like, how am I going to navigate that? And then like talking about the power of perspective is a quick way to shift that was like, oh wait, I'm in like Minnesota at a great hospital, like in the US, big city, great place, good care. Like you're not in the bush of Africa or on an Antarctic cruise or in the Galapagos or even on that island we were in Belize that didn't even have a hospital, just a urgent care that was rarely ever open. So, so like that perspective, I want to recap these top 4. That perspective is like a huge shift. So whenever something starts to happen, and no matter what in your life, if you're starting to feel like just stressed or bad, like you just feel heavy or you have like more negative emotions, can you look at your perspective? What are you thinking? And can you shift that with some gratitude or just trying to change the perspective of it? Because no matter where you are, there's always something to be thankful for. And there's always something that could be worse, quite frankly. So can we look at it and like just get that in perspective, especially when it's something like, oh, I just have an angry client, or, oh, I just, have to figure out a new vacation. Okay, fine. So get that perspective. And then drop into whatever belief that you can truly believe, whatever thought you can truly believe of like, hey, this is all going to work out. Or maybe the thought that you believe is just like, oh, thank goodness I'm not whatever. Maybe your thought is just whatever perspective it is, and you can't find something else to hold on to of a grounding belief, but you can ladder your way up there. So perspective, belief that it's all going to be fine, set an intention of what you want to happen, Like, okay, I'm going to figure this out. I will satisfy this client. Like this will be great. Like Belize, I was like, that house or something better.
Yeah.
And just be open to it. Yeah. And then you start to do the action first from like maybe brainstorming, and then start to dial in on like what actually happens and start to take some action.
I love this. I took notes during your talk, but I love the perspective, belief, intention, action.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really helpful and will hopefully ground me the next time I enter a crisis. But please know I'm calling you. So,
especially if it's a vacation booking. I book vacations under pressure really well.
Yeah. Like just the perspective of like, we tend to catastrophize. Like the upset client about the photos is not going to ruin your business. It's really not. It's unpleasant, and that's okay to acknowledge that you're going to have some negative emotion, but how long you stay there is up to you.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh. This has been super fun. Thanks for turning the tables for an interview there, Miss Heather.
Oh, I appreciate getting speaking of perspective, getting your perspective, because I'm just in awe of your mastery, and I just really want to be like you when I grow up. That's all.
That's okay. Remember, we talked about there's things that I find simple and there's things that you find simple. So we all help each other out. So anyway, thanks everybody for being here with us, and we will see you next week. Thanks for listening to the Hair of the Dog podcast. This was episode number 191. If you want to check out the show notes for access to any of the resources that we mentioned, simply go to www.hairofthedogacademy.com/191.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Hair of the Dog podcast. If you enjoyed this show, please take a minute to leave a review. And while you're there, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming episodes. One last thing, if you are ready to dive into more resources, head over to our website at www.hairofthedogacademy.com. Thanks for being a part of this pet photography community.